All right, I'm not ready for this. Are you ready for this? I don't know if I am, but here we are. All right, so I'm Heather with Underwater Panther, and the work I do on this channel lives at the intersection of astro-psychology, moral cognition, shadow integration, polarity mechanics, and power dynamics across psyche and culture. I'm not here to run a political commentary channel or tell you what to believe. I'm here to map how belief forms, where morality actually lives inside the mind and body, and why certain patterns repeat in relationships, families, and institutions, even when the language changes. Most people are trying to fix surface behavior. I am mapping nervous systems, conscience, structures, and moral load. And in this series, we're ranking the archetypes by moral load, which is the internal weight people carry when something goes wrong. Capricorn carries consequence, Scorpio carries contamination, and Cancer carries connection. Because what I'm really studying is containment, not vibes, not communication, containment. Containment of emotion, power, responsibility, and truth. Because underneath every relationship collapse, every burnout spiral, every polarity war, every gender debate, every emotional labor argument, there is one missing architecture. So this channel is not astrology entertainment, it's structural psychology. So what I am mapping here is containment, how nervous systems carry pressure, how responsibility distributes when reality destabilizes, how polarity collapses inside individuals and relationships, and why certain archetypes always end up holding what everyone else avoids. So this is part of my containment, polarity, and moral load series here on YouTube. I have like 20 different series going on. And I certainly am going to ask you to please like and subscribe. I am almost at 500 subscribers, and that is low tier monetization of my channel. So certainly please like and subscribe on your way in. So I'm breaking down the 12 astro-psychological archetypes, not by personality traits, but by something much deeper. Who carries weight when systems fail? So far in this series, I have covered Capricorn or the ISTJ, moral weight bearer number 1, structural consequence, and Scorpio or the ENFP, moral load number 2 through moral contamination. And now we are moving into Cancer or the ENFJ, which is moral load bearer number 3, which is where this framework shifts. Because Capricorn carries outcomes, Scorpio carries truth, and Cancer carries people. Cancer doesn't metabolize corruption like Scorpio. Cancer doesn't carry structure like Capricorn. Cancer carries emotional safety, attachment fields, family cohesion, relational continuity, who belongs, who feels held, and who feels abandoned. This is the archetype of emotional labor, not being nice, not being sensitive, actual nervous system labor. Cancer becomes the emotional infrastructure of human systems. They absorb guilt around care. They carry responsibility for connection. They regulate atmosphere. They hold belonging together with their own body. And unlike Capricorn and Scorpio, Cancer doesn't carry this internally in silence. Cancer carries this externally through service, through presence, through emotional availability, and through showing up. That's why Cancer burns out differently. Capricorn braces, Scorpio burns, and Cancer dissolves. They disappear into care. So today we are breaking down Cancer's unique moral load mechanics through astro-psychology, why Cancer carries attachment burden instead of consequence or contamination, how extroverted feeling and extroverted sensing creates emotional labor, why Cancer remembers through the body, not through stories, how Cancer collapses when containment fails, and what healthy integration actually looks like. So, we're also transitioning in this episode from introverted feeling and introverted sensing archetypes with Scorpio and Cancer into extroverted feeling and extroverted sensing archetypes with Virgo and Cancer, meaning we're moving from internal conscience systems into relational responsibility systems. That is a huge shift. So, if you've resonated with Capricorn or Scorpio, stay with me. This is where we start talking about the people who hold families together, stabilize emotional environments, and quietly carry human continuity. Not because they're weak, but because someone has to. All right, so let's get into it. I am going to start with bringing up, actually, before I get into the cognitive functions and explaining what emotional labor actually is, I am going to, my nose is starting to run. I do apologize. All right, so I'm going to pull up the book I am currently working on just to kind of go through. I'm sorry, I had to. My nose is starting to run. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the book that I'm working on currently. Oh, great. All right, so I'm going to have to adjust this. Not sure. I think I hit the format button, and so now it's all whopper jawed. Is that as big as it gets? Oh, that's what's happening. All right, so that's as big as it's getting. Great. My nose is starting to run. Okay, so this is a book I'm currently working on, so no, it's not in a finished format. All right, so in my first series in the moral cognition video series, I started with the masculine and feminine axis. So I have done an entire series through the 12 archetypes, ranking the most masculine to the most feminine. And that explains how energy moves. And then now what I am doing is ranking the archetypes through the highest moral load bearer to the lowest. All right, so these axes with the masculine and feminine and the moral load bearing, they intersect, but they are not identical. So, the most masculine to the most feminine, we have Capricorn, Aries, Aquarius, Leo, Sagittarius, Virgo, Scorpio, Gemini, Taurus, Libra, Cancer, and Pisces. So, Cancer, y'all are a very feminine archetype, but you're number 3 on the moral weight bearing ranking. And so, I'm going to go quickly. I'm not going to read through all of this. I'm just going to go into. Where did I put it? I don't think I actually put that in here. Oh, great. I think I pulled up the wrong. All right, so I'm just going to briefly go over the what tier we are now on. So we are not on tier 1 anymore. That is Capricorn and Scorpio. So tier 2 is where we are at. So you are in tier 2 on the moral ranking. Let me actually pull up my note here. Where did I put that note? Oh, there it is. I found it. Okay. Okay, so this is the list of the archetypes on the highest through the lowest moral ranking here. So this is what I am currently working on doing videos for. This is the order. So moral load ranking, we have Capricorn number 1, Scorpio number 2. That was tier 1. Now we are in tier 2 working with Cancer and then Virgo. So Capricorn, or the ISTJ, was the structural load bearer, moral weight, location. Oh, it's not going to show up correctly, so I'm just going to do it this way. We're just going to talk about what tier we are on right now and then get into the cognitive functions. I am getting exhausted. Okay, so we are in tier number 2 with the moral ranking, relational and operational retainers. So these systems carry weight through people and patterns. They store emotional burden, Cancer, and integrity, memory with Virgo. They don't hold reality itself, they hold human impact. They become emotional infrastructure, relational glue, accountability ledgers. They exhaust through service. This is tier 2. All right. So these archetypes do not carry reality itself, they carry human fallout. They hold emotional aftermath, relational stability, and integrity continuity. They become the soft infrastructure. They don't stop collapse. They hold people inside collapse. They don't carry reality itself. They carry human impact. All right, so Cancer carries relational guilt. Virgo carries mechanical guilt. Cancer says, I failed to protect. Virgo says, I failed to prevent. Both internalize, both exhaust, different channels. So Cancer, the relational burden holder. I'm going to do a brief overview. Moral weight location is emotional safety and care. Cancer feels responsible for well-being, protection, and continuity. They internalize guilt around harm, abandonment, and emotional rupture, often even when it wasn't preventable. I should have protected them. Burnout risk is self-erasure, and they are misread as manipulative or needy. Cancer carries attachment. They hold emotional safety, family cohesion, belonging, relational repair. Cancer doesn't carry corruption or structural consequence. They carry who got hurt. So their nervous system tracks who feels unsafe, who is disconnected, where attachment ruptured. They become emotional infrastructure. They absorb guilt around care. They step into protector roles automatically. They regulate atmospheres. They hold space. They stabilize families and communities through embodied empathy. Cancer doesn't explode like Scorpio. They disappear into caring. They become smaller so others can feel held. This is moral load number 3. All right, so that is enough of that. That book will be for sale when I get through this series. All right, so now I wanted to talk about we are transitioning from introverted feeling and introverted sensing users into extroverted feeling and extroverted sensing users. So I need to go briefly over the cognitive functions. All right, I'm going to take down that key card. All right. So I'm about to move over here. All right, so what you are looking at is on the left side, we have tier 1, number 1, Capricorn, number 2, Scorpio for moral ranking. So Capricorns carry the most moral weight, and then Scorpio, and then number 3, Cancer, number 4, Virgo. So on the left side of the screen, you have introverted feeling users. Capricorn, you have FI child. Scorpio, you have FI parent. Cancer and Virgo are extroverted feeling users, FE hero for Cancer, and Virgo as well. So I am going to break down what FI and FE are first, and then talk a little bit about SI and SE. So first, I'm going to actually explain the cognitive functions. So I do have that pulled up on my phone in my Scorpio book. All right, so what is introverted feeling for Capricorn and Scorpio? So FI is an introverted cognitive function, so they carry that internally. It is a moral decision making, personal good, bad, subjective judgment function. So introversion means it creates freedom. I'm going to have to blow this up a little bit more. So introversion creates freedom through their own values, finds freedom within itself, but is not expressive. They soak in deep. It's intensive, not extensive. So FI represents morals, individuals' belief, and cares what others think. They have extroverted thinking parent. So sympathy, principles, weighing things out, pushes for closure. They're more in tune with how they feel rather than what others are feeling. Has emotional responses to data outside of themselves. It's about their individual beliefs. All right, so what is introverted feeling? So introverted feeling, or FI, is the cognitive function responsible for moral judgment, personal values, and the inner compass of good versus bad. Unlike extroverted feeling, which operates through collective ethics and social consensus, FI is deeply individualistic. It evaluates situations through personal meaning, not public logic or majority rule. FI asks one central question: is this good or bad for me according to my internal code? FI is the most private of all the feeling functions. It operates intensively, not extensively, a deep internal processing system that can take time to crystallize its judgments. This is why FI users often appear mysterious, slow to open up, or hard to read emotionally. Their emotional world isn't broadcasted outward. It is held and distilled internally. When FI users finally decide how they feel it with conviction. Their values become sacred territory and they guard them fiercely. So, at its core, FI is moral reasoning, not logical reasoning. FI users evaluate the world through emotional resonance, depth of experience, and internal truth. When they say, I feel this is true, they do not mean factual truth, they mean emotional truth. And because FI is introverted, this evaluation happens privately, often quietly, but with tremendous depth. So FI also ties into status, reputation, and worthiness, but not in the way extroverted feeling does. FI cares about how others think of them, not out of a desire to belong, but because status feels good. So that's just a little side note. All right, so extroverted feeling with Cancer and Virgo. So it's pretty much the opposite of introverted feeling. So FI represents morals and FE represents ethics, majority belief, outer decision making. They care about social rules and norms. They can be social justice warriors. They have very high empathy normally. FI is sympathy, FE is empathy. They turn to others for emotional support. And what else do I want to say about this? Self-worth is found in helping others. So they want gratitude and recognition and praise when it comes to helping others. So FE cares about what is socially appropriate. Like I said, high FE users are very aware of the overall mood of the environment. So you can think of it as extroverted feeling. They are more aware of their environmental, other people's feelings. Introverted feeling, they are more aware of their own feelings and emotions. All right, so FE users work to maintain a sense of harmony in their outer world. They can tend to be polite, empathetic, and helpful, and do whatever they can to make others feel comfortable. FE surveys a breadth of human emotion and feeling. Its goal is to cultivate interpersonal harmony. They feel socially responsible. They have a broad awareness of how others feel and others' values. They're worried they aren't caring enough. or they're not doing enough to help others feel better. They're all about connecting, considering others, and the group organizing to meet their needs and honor their feelings and values. So, extroverted feeling users, they tend to check in with the group before making decisions. FI users tend to not check in with other people before they make decisions. So they FE users, they adjust and accommodate others, building trust through giving in relationships. So, what does extroverted feeling do? FE considers the emotional and physical needs of the people around oneself, tunes into the emotional wavelengths of others, tries to create a harmonious atmosphere, considers the feelings and perspectives of other people when making a decision, lives by a code of conduct about what should and should not be done. So, they are very concerned with their role. All right. Now then. Oh, I didn't pull up, I've gotta give me a second. I literally just exited that out, and I've got 20 things open here. Alright, so I'm gonna have to go to the table of contents real quick and flip over to extroverted sensing. Give me one moment here. Because I wanna compare extroverted sensing with introverted sensing. Okay, so I've gotta do that on this book. I've got 2 different huge books open right now. Okay, SI. Introverted sensing, where are you? I'm looking through a 500-page book right now. Give me one moment. Here it is. Okay. All right. So, introverted sensing, I will start there first for Capricorn and Scorpio. All right. So, introverted sensing feels like a colder, earthy energy. It represents past loyalty, honor, and duty. It's an introverted subjective perception function. So it is the archive of the soul, the body's memory, and the keeper of the past. Introverted sensing is one of the 4 perceiving functions. It does not judge, decide, or choose. It absorbs, records, and preserves. It is the internal hard drive of the psyche, storing experiences, sensations, impressions, emotional memories, bodily reactions, trauma patterns, routines, safety cues, and familiarity. So sensing function, you can think of the 5 senses. So it's introverted sensing. They are very concerned with their own comfort. So where other functions interpret or create, SI simply captures reality as it was. Okay. So the essence of SI, subjective internal perception, reality filtered through the body and the emotional subconscious. SI turns inward. It is subjective, it is personal, it is sensory and emotional. It records based on felt experience. It collects tone, texture, safety signals, bodily sensations, emotional context, memories tied to physical experience. SI does not observe the outer world like extroverted sensing or SE. Instead, it observes the inner sensory world of that person. So, it is the sense of I remember the way this felt. My body knows this. This reminds me of something. I've been here before. I know this pattern. SI is a lived memory of the person. So as it is also stores the past, the inner historian. SI remembers details, names, dates, tone of voice, emotional climate, environmental context, and physical sensations and symbolic cues. SI users carry massive storage capacity, RAM, in their memory. So they have a huge RAM of long-term memory, but this slows reaction time. They are processing many, many impressions every time something new happens. This is why SI is loyal, cautious, defensive, comfort-seeking, routine-oriented, tradition-aware, predictability-focused, and pattern-recognizing. All right, so that's enough on SI. I'm going to get into SE now for Cancer and Virgo. Ooh, it's getting hot in here. All right, so SE is warmer feeling to other people. It is an objective outer perception function. It represents physics, mechanics, short-term memory, and it is more tactical rather than strategic. Extroverted exploration. So SE seeks extensive outward stimulation, new sights, sounds, tastes, experiences, sensations, and they consume to experience. Occurs by the way of the 5 primary senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. So they are more attuned to their external environment rather than what's going on internally. So attuned to reality, they see it as fullness of life, to direct attention outside of themselves and to enjoy sensations in the moment. SE experiencing, they want to experience the moment and the immediate context. All right, so it's attentiveness to details in the environment, sensitivity to a lot of sensory commotion in the outer environment, tendency to they can tend to be clumsy though as well, depending on where their SE is at. We have child. So Cancer, Virgo actually has SI. I'm just now remembering that, and this is going to drive me insane. But we are moving into Cancer, so it's good to actually compare SI with SE because Cancer is the odd man out here of the top 4 load bearers. So this is going to change a little bit for Virgo. So sorry for that confusion. Oh my gosh, I knew that deep down. I promise you that. I know Virgos have amazing memories, unlike myself. Obviously. All right. So extroverted sensing, FE. So we have extroversion, cognitive functions going on for Cancer, and introverted sensing and introverted feeling for Capricorn and Scorpio. All right. So I am done with those notes. All right, so this is the pivot from internal conscience to externalized responsibility with Cancer. Virgo is going to be a little bit different. Okay, so the shift from FI, SI to FE, SE. Why Cancer carries differently than Capricorn and Scorpio. So up until now in the series, we've been inside FI and SI systems. Capricorn and Scorpio are internal processors. Their moral experience happens inside their nervous system first. They metabolize reality privately. They absorb consequence internally. They carry weight in silence. Cancer and Virgo do something completely different. They don't primarily internalize, they externalize. And this is where everything changes. Because when we move from FI to FE and from SI to SE, we are no longer dealing with internal conscience. We are dealing with relational responsibility. All right, so moral load is not about thinking versus feeling. This is critical. Moral load does not correlate directly to thinking versus feeling, if you had that thought. Introversion versus extroversion. So that's a massive misunderstanding in typology culture. Instead of moral load correlates to something much more fundamental, where experience is stored. So that's why I'm hammering on SI and SE. There are only 2 ways moral weight stays in a human system. Either it is internalized or it is externalized. Everything else is surface behavior. So internalized moral load with FI and SI, and Saturn as well for Capricorn. So Capricorn and Scorpio store moral weight internally. Their nervous systems absorb reality. They carry pressure inside the body. They metabolize consequence privately. They hold existential responsibility. This shows up as conscience pressure, somatic consequence, psychological burden, long term responsibility imprint. Capricorn internalizes outcomes, Scorpio internalizes contamination. They don't need other people to feel implicated. They already feel it. They suffer even in silence. That's why these archetypes collapse inward. Capricorn braces, Scorpio rots, both carry inside. So I really shouldn't have even brought up. Okay, yeah, I do talk about Virgo a little bit. So sorry about the SE confusion with Virgo. I knew better. I'm just exhausted. Okay. Externalized moral load. So Cancer and Virgo, they externalize it. Virgo is led with Mercury. So I need to do more research on Virgo. I haven't quite gotten as deep as I want to in Virgo yet. I am still hammering Cancer, obviously. So, anyways, Cancer and Virgo do not store moral weight primarily inside themselves. They carry it through relationship. They carry it through service. They carry it through response. Their burden lives in interaction. So, Virgos are ruled by Mercury. So, that certainly changes things. All right. So, their burden lives in interaction, not isolation. They absorb responsibility by becoming functional infrastructure for others. So they hold relational duty, attachment safety, integrity tracking, and human continuity. Cancer carries emotional fields, Virgo carries operational coherence. They don't sit alone with their conscience. They move toward repair. They show up, they stabilize environments, they become the glue. This is not internal suffering, this is external labor. So, the core rule of moral load. Moral load is created where perception meets responsibility and cannot be discharged. That is the law. Not personality, not gender. Where perception collides with duty and there is no exit. That's where weight forms. So, masculine and feminine versus moral load. So, I am going to repeat this. Two completely different axes. Masculine and feminine polarity tells us how force moves. Moral load tells us who retains weight. These are not the same. You can be highly masculine and carry almost no moral residue. Aries is a perfect example of that. You can be deeply feminine and carry crushing burden. Cancer is the prime example. That's why culture is confused. People think softness equals weakness. They think masculinity equals responsibility. That is completely false. Cancer is one of the most burdened archetypes in the entire system, not because they are emotional or quote unquote feminine, because they hold attachment fields. All right, so the planetary moral quadrilateral. So once you see this, everything locks. Saturn equals consequence. Pluto equals contamination. Moon equals attachment. Mercury equals accounting. So Capricorn with Saturn, Scorpio with Pluto, Cancer with Moon, and Virgo with Mercury. That is your moral architecture. 4 different ways reality gets carried. So Cancer does not use introverted sensing. So Capricorn and Virgo use introverted sensing as well as Scorpio. Cancer does not. This matters enormously. Introverted sensing stores memory archivally, timeline-based, pattern-based, historical. Capricorn remembers exactly what happened. Virgo remembers exactly what failed. They catalog experience, they track events, they hold narrative memory. Cancer does not. Cancer uses extroverted sensing and Saturn. I lost my place. Which means Cancer stores experiences somatically in the body, in the nervous system, in emotional imprint. Cancer remembers who showed up, who didn't, what safety felt like, where abandonment landed, not as stories, as sensation, as attachment memory, as embodied experience. Cancer doesn't archive. Cancer absorbs. That's why Cancer carries attachment burden instead of moral judgment. They don't keep receipts. They become the memory. So Scorpio, internal first, external later. Scorpio is unique because they do both, but in sequence. So first, Scorpio internalizes contamination through Fi, Si, and Pluto. They absorb rot, they carry betrayal, they hold truth privately. Then when containment fails, Mars and Te activate. They externalize, they confront, and they explode. So Scorpio carries internally until they can't anymore. Then it comes out. Capricorn carries internally and seals. Cancer carries externally and dissolves. Virgo carries internally through accounting, then exits quietly. Different collapse styles, same exhaustion. So Capricorn, internal collapse. Scorpio, internal rot, then external eruption. Cancer, external emotional absorption. Virgo, internal accounting, and then silent withdrawal. Each archetype carries differently, each breaks differently, each suffers differently, but all four are moral load bearers. They just hold reality through different channels. So why this matters for Cancer? Cancer doesn't carry responsibility like Capricorn. Cancer doesn't carry corruption like Scorpio. Cancer carries people. They hold families together. They regulate emotional fields. They absorb attachment rupture. They become relational infrastructure. They feel what others avoid. They stabilize environments with their own nervous system. That is emotional labor. Not being nice, not being sensitive, being the emotional spine of human systems. That's why Cancer burns out quietly. They don't explode, they don't dissolve, they disappear into care. All right, so now I'm going to take down the other archetypes. I think that is enough of comparing them. All right, so where am I here? Scorpio, Capricorn, Virgo. All right, so now we are moving to Cancer. I think I kind of, I gotta fix this. There we go, looks better. All right, Cancer. All right. I gotta change this song. This is ridiculous. I don't even know what I want to listen to. I'm so exhausted. This is good. All right. Okay, so now we're going to focus on Cancer. Cancer, certainly, we have to talk about emotional labor. Because Cancer, you're running extroverted feeling hero with the moon, and you are a water sign. So emotional labor is kind of your thing. So here's your formal definition of emotional labor. So I'm going to actually break this down quite a bit. Emotional labor is the unconscious regulation of relational atmosphere, attachment safety, and interpersonal stability performed by one nervous system for multiple others. Cancer performs emotional labor by tracking feelings, smoothing conflict, anticipating needs, holding space, buffering tension, and maintaining belonging. They become the emotional HVAC system. They don't ask, they just absorb. So, what emotional labor actually is? Emotional labor is the invisible coordination, anticipation, and regulation work required to keep human systems stable. Not being nice, not nagging, not talking about feelings. It is executive functioning applied to people instead of objects. Think of it as systems management for relationships, households, families, and social continuity. So, what emotional labor actually is? All right, so emotional labor is the ongoing nervous system work of regulating emotional environments so relationships, families, workplaces, or communities can function. It is not being emotional, being sensitive, being nice, being supportive occasionally. It is taking responsibility for emotional stability that is not yours alone. It is the invisible labor of noticing emotional shifts, anticipating conflict, preventing rupture, soothing distress, maintaining cohesion, holding space for others, and absorbing tension so systems don't fracture. It's what happens when one person becomes the emotional regulator for everyone else. That is the core. Emotional labor is environmental regulation. True emotional labor doesn't live inside the individual. It lives between people. It's relational, it's structural. It happens when someone subconsciously takes on the role of emotional thermostat for the group. They become the one who checks in first, smooths over discomfort, keeps conversations civil, monitors moods, ensures inclusion, carries unresolved feelings, and repairs emotional damage. They don't do this because they're kind. They do it because their nervous system detects instability and moves to correct it. That is why emotional labor is exhausting. You're not processing your own emotions, you're managing everyone else's. Emotional labor exists because containment is uneven. Here's the architectural truth. Emotional labor emerges when containment capacity is unequal. Some nervous systems discharge emotion quickly, others retain it. When people who discharge pair with people who retain, the retainers become emotional carriers. That's how emotional labor is created through nervous system dynamics. The person with higher containment becomes the emotional shock absorber. They absorb disappointment, anxiety, relational tension, unmet needs, and unspoken conflict, so others don't have to. Emotional labor is weight absorption, not expression. This is where people get confused. They think emotional labor is about talking about feelings. It isn't. It's about absorbing emotional weight so relationships don't destabilize. Often, the person doing emotional labor says less, not more. They swallow reactions, they soften edges, they delay confrontation, they hold space, they manage atmosphere, they make things okay. That's labor, not expression. Containment. Why emotional labor becomes invisible. Emotional labor is hard to see because when it's working, nothing explodes. Everyone just feels fine. The house stays peaceful, the relationship stays intact, the workplace feels manageable. No one notices the person holding it all together until they stop. Then suddenly, relationships collapse, conflict surfaces, people feel abandoned, emotional chaos appears. And everyone wonders what happened. What happened is the emotional regulator burned out. Emotional labor versus emotional expression. Another critical distinction. Emotional labor is not emotional expression. Crying is not emotional labor. Venting is not emotional labor. Being upset is not emotional labor. Emotional labor is containing emotions so others don't have to. It is often quiet, invisible, and thanked and long term. Why emotional labor creates resentment? Because it's usually unilateral. One person carries, others discharge. Over time, the carrier feels unseen, unsupported, taken for granted, and emotionally alone. But they don't stop because stopping feels unsafe. They've become the emotional infrastructure. So resentment accumulates silently. This is how burnout forms, not from feeling too much, from holding too much. Emotional labor is structural, not moral. This is important. People who do emotional labor aren't better. They just have higher containment capacity. And people who don't aren't worse. They just discharge instead of retain. It's a structural difference in nervous systems, not virtue. The final architecture. Emotional labor happens when someone senses emotional instability, Their nervous system moves to stabilize it. They carry what others release. They do this repeatedly without reciprocal containment. Over time, they become exhausted. That is emotional labor. It is the hidden backbone of human relationships. So, emotional labor is simply one expression of moral weight bearing because emotional labor is one of the most misunderstood structural dynamics in relationships. All right, so all right, I'm going to break down emotional labor versus moral load. These are related, not identical. Emotional labor equals regulating the emotional field between people. Moral load equals retaining responsibility pressure when instability occurs. Emotional labor is one expression of moral load, but not all moral load is emotional labor. So, for example, Capricorn carries structural consequence. That's moral load, but not emotional labor. Scorpio carries contamination. That's moral load, but not emotional labor in the classic sense. Cancer carries emotional stability. That is emotional labor. Virgo carries integrity tracking. That's operational moral labor. So, emotional labor is a subset of moral load that specifically deals with attachment regulation. It's about who keeps the emotional ecosystem stable, who repairs relational ruptures, who absorbs anxiety, who makes sure no one feels abandoned. Moral load is broader. Emotional labor is the relational branch of it. Emotional labor in romantic relationships. So, this is where it gets intense. In romantic relationships, emotional labor shows up as remembering birthdays and relational details, initiating hard conversations, checking in after conflict, softening arguments, sensing shifts in mood, maintaining closeness, and managing emotional distance. But here's the deeper layer. Emotional labor in romance is often attachment stabilization. I thought I was going to die. I need a drink. All right, here's a deeper layer. Emotional labor in romance is often attachment stabilization. One partner tracks, are we okay? Are they upset? Is something wrong? Did I do something? Is the distance growing? If that tracking is not mutual, imbalance forms. The emotional laborer becomes the relationship regulator, and the other partner becomes the emotional consumer. This is where resentment begins because the regulator feels I am the only one protecting this bond. Emotional labor in families. Families are emotional systems. This is almost always one member who becomes the peacemaker, the mediator, the organizer, the memory holder, and the emotional translator. Often, this is a mother, a daughter, the eldest child, the Cancer, the Virgo, the high FE user. They track who's fighting, who's distant, who's hurting, who needs reassurance, and who hasn't been called. They become emotional infrastructure, and because they're good at it, it becomes expected, then invisible, then exhausting. Emotional labor collapse patterns. When emotional labors burn out, collapse happens in predictable stages. Stage 1, overfunctioning, they try harder. Stage 2, quiet resentment, they start keeping score. Stage 3, emotional withdrawal, they stop initiating. And stage 4, sudden rupture. Everyone says, what happened? What happened is the regulator stopped regulating. Most relationships don't collapse because of conflict. They collapse because emotional labor went one-sided for too long. Emotional labor versus control. This one is huge. Emotional labor is often misread as control because the person doing it anticipates, manages, initiates, adjusts, and intervenes. But the difference is intention. Control seeks dominance, emotional labor seeks stability. However, when emotional labor goes unreciprocated long enough, it mutates. Then it becomes micromanagement, resentment policing, emotional monitoring, and subtle pressure. That's not because the person is controlling, it's because they are exhausted. unreciprocated care turns sharp. Emotional labor misreads as neediness. This is one of the cruelest misinterpretations. The emotional labor eventually says, I need you to show up. And the low load partner hears, you're too sensitive, you need too much, and you're dramatic. But when the laborer is actually saying is, I cannot be the only stabilizer, they don't need more emotion, they need shared containment. All right, so emotional labor by archetype. So I just want to mention this. I did take the other archetype key cards down, but oh well. So Cancer or the ENFJ, emotional labor through attachment. They hold belonging, connection, emotional safety, and family cohesion. They disappear into care. They overextend to keep everyone okay. Virgo or the ESFJ, emotional labor through competence. They hold effort tracking, task distribution, fairness, and operational ethics. They don't soothe emotions, they fix logistics, but that's emotional labor too. Scorpio or the ENFP, not emotional labor in the classic sense. They carry contamination, they confront truth. Their burden is exposure, not soothing. And Capricorn, not emotional labor. They carry consequence. They hold structure. I'm laughing because I'm a Capricorn stellium. My moon, everything, 10th house, you name it. So why high load women pair with low load men? I certainly want to put this in here. High load women would be the top 4 in my moral load ranking, and then low load would be the tier 4, which I will get into later. So, high emotional labor women, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, minus Capricorn, they're seriously not emotional expressively. Often pair with men who discharge quickly, regulate through action, avoid emotional retention, and feel relief after conflict. Why? Because polarity attraction confuses capacity difference with compatibility. The high load partner feels strong and stable, the low load partner feels light and easy. But long term, one carries, one releases. That imbalance eventually surfaces. So emotional labor versus masculine and feminine. Masculine and feminine equals force direction. Emotional labor equals weight retention. So you can be highly feminine and carry crushing emotional labor. Cancer, highly masculine and carry almost none. Aries, highly feminine and carry almost none. Libra. That's why culture is confused. People conflate softness with burden. They are not the same axis. So, the core truth emotional labor is the invisible maintenance of emotional ecosystems. It is weight absorption for the sake of stability. It is nervous system regulation extended outward, and it becomes destructive when it is unilateral, it is unacknowledged, it is unreciprocated, and it becomes identity. Because no human system is meant to carry everyone, not even Cancer, not even Virgo, not even you. All right, so I wanted to get into this even deeper, but I'm going to skip like 5 pages. All right, so I'm going to make this into its own video. I'm actually going to skip probably 10 pages. Nope, probably 15 or 20. So I was going to get really deep into how my entire field of work has evolved over the last couple of years. But I don't really feel like going there tonight. It is late. I'm tired. I'm almost at an hour. So let me just scroll down here for a while and get into the cognitive function since you've been staring at that on your screen for the last 2 videos. My last video, hour 15 minutes, turned into a bridge video. All right, so Cancer or the ENFJ. All right, so I am actually going to pull up another note because now we are going to start breaking down the inner and outer masculine and feminine of Cancer. All right, let me see how big I need to make this. Make sure I get the whole note on here. All right, so hopefully that is big enough that you can see it. Which Panther should I cover up, the black one or the yellow one? Yellow? Okay, sounds great. Okay, so we will be getting into that momentarily. All right, so Cancer or the ENFJ. Moral load bearer number 3, the relational container. All right, so we have FE. Okay, so this is the key card you've been staring at. It is Astro-Psychology. Astrologically, you have the ruler, exaltation, left field, and fall. Psychologically, you have the hero, parent, child, and inferior cognitive functions. I'm not going to get too deep into what all that means. I'm going to keep it within this framework. Okay, so Cancer does not carry the truth or contamination like Scorpio or structure like Capricorn. Cancer carries people. Cancer is the archetype that metabolizes emotional continuity, attachment safety, and relational stability inside the nervous system itself, where Capricorn absorbs responsibility and Scorpio absorbs contamination. Cancer absorbs belonging. Their moral load does not come from exposure or consequence, it comes from protection. They don't metabolize truth, they don't metabolize systems, they metabolize emotional ecosystems. Cancer becomes morally implicated whenever someone they care about is unsafe, disconnected, or emotionally destabilized. Their conscience is relational. Harm registers as rupture. Distance feels like danger, and responsibility is experienced through attachment rather than duty or truth. Cancer doesn't ask what breaks if I don't hold this. They don't ask who will face this. They ask who is going to take care of them. That single question defines the entire archetype. Cancer carries emotional infrastructure. They become the nervous system for families, relationships, communities, and often entire social environments. When connection fries, Cancer steps in. When people fall apart, Cancer stabilizes. When no one is holding the emotional field, Cancer absorbs it into their own body. This is why Cancer ranks number 3 in moral load. They don't metabolize systems or corruption, they metabolize people. Cancer's polarity architecture. Cancer operates through a polarity system that is fundamentally relational. Their inner and outer masculine and feminine are not organized around power of structure. They are organized around safety, continuity, and emotional coherence. Everything in Cancer's psyche revolves around whether attachment feels secure. So now let's break down Cancer using the inner and outer masculine and feminine map. So, I do want to say in my prior series, ranked the 12 archetypes through the most masculine and feminine. So that is how they express externally. Now, this series with moral load bearing, I am breaking down each archetype with their inner and outer masculine and feminine. So, this is going to probably be a 500-page book by the time I'm done with this series. I will have that available for purchase. It's just I'm trying to shove in so much information into every single video. I have multiple axes going on. I have astro-psychology going on. I study nervous systems, containment. I have a lot going on here. So I know it's very dense, and I am attracting high conscious people, so thank you so much for those of you that get this stuff. I am extremely organized, and seriously, there are books available for purchase. I wish I had someone doing this for me 10 years ago when I started studying this information. Just letting you know, if you want to dive deep and have this organized, it is out there for you. All right, so here's Cancer's polarity stack. All right, so we're going to start with the outer feminine with extroverted feeling hero and the moon. This is the emotional field attunement. Emotional attunement and relational field sensing, protective bonding, where Cancer feels the emotional atmosphere first, absorbs collective mood, and instinctively moves toward care, cohesion, and safety. Cancer's outer feminine is where they first meet the world. Cancer, or the ENFJ, perceives emotionally first. They don't scan for motives like Scorpio. They don't scan for systems like Capricorn. They scan for emotional temperature. Who feels left out? Who feels unseen? Who feels unsafe? Who is hurting quietly? FE Hero opens directly into the emotional field. Moon rules their instinctive responses. So FE Hero combined with the moon means Cancer feels the emotional atmosphere before anything else. They register tone, tension, mood shifts, and relational undercurrents instantly. They don't analyze rooms, they absorb them. So that is emotional immersion. They attune to facial expressions, voice changes, body language, and silence. Their emotional radar is always on. This is why Cancer is often described as nurturing, protective, or maternal, regardless of gender. They don't move toward people intellectually, they move toward emotional need. So perception arrives as empathy with momentum, protectiveness inside awareness, emotional radar already mobilized. They don't notice distress, they move towards it. This is why Cancer, or the ENFJ, becomes the rescuer, the emotional coordinator, the relational glue, and the one who steps in. Their outer feminine is active empathy, not passive sensitivity. They feel and respond simultaneously. This outer feminine function is what makes Cancer such a powerful relational healer. But it's also what makes them vulnerable to emotional overload. They absorb the collective mood, they carry unspoken grief. They take responsibility for emotional climates they did not create. Their system assumes if I feel it, I should help it. That is the beginning of their moral load. That is emotional atmosphere intelligence. Not sympathy, not people pleasing, atmosphere sensing. So, this is the emotional atmosphere sensing. It's the ability to read relational weather and respond to it instinctively. Cancer feels the emotional field first. They notice tension before it's named, sadness before it's admitted, emotional distancing before anyone says a word. Their first move is cohesion, restore safety, restore bonding, and restore connection. The moon component makes this protective, not just empathetic, protective. Cancer doesn't only sense emotion, they treat emotion like a responsibility. If someone in the room is suffering, Cancer's nervous system flags it as something must be done. Cancer feels obligated to respond. This is why they become emotional first responders. They stabilize people, they soothe situations, they try to restore cohesion. Not because they're weak, because their nervous system flags relational fracture as danger. Now we're going to move to the inner masculine with introverted intuition, parent, and Jupiter in exaltation. Quiet future mapping. The internal vision and future vision, quiet guidance, meaning architecture, and quiet directional authority. Where Cancer privately tracks relational trajectories, anticipates emotional outcomes, and orients towards long term belonging. I see where this is going. This is Cancer's hidden strategist. NI parent isn't loud. It doesn't argue. It knows where things are going. Paired with Jupiter, this creates an internal moral compass that constantly asks, what future are we building? Who will this affect long term? Affect. Inside joke. Where does this lead emotionally? Cancer often already sees the ending before anyone else does, but doesn't announce it. They guide gently, suggest softly, and attempt course correction through care rather than command. This is why Cancer gives advice wrapped in concern instead of authority. They don't lead with dominance, they lead with foresight. This is Cancer's stabilizer. An I parent holds long range emotional trajectories. Cancer's inner masculine is not assertive, it is anticipatory. An I parent combined with Jupiter gives Cancer an internal guidance system that tracks emotional futures. They don't just feel what is happening now, they sense where relationships are heading. They quietly forecast, if this continues, someone will get hurt. If I don't intervene, this bond will weaken. If this pattern stays unchecked, this person will collapse. Cancer rarely announces these perceptions. They hold them privately, they adjust behavior subtly, they try to guide outcomes through care, presence, and emotional support. This is Cancer's hidden strategic intelligence. They are constantly modeling future attachment outcomes and trying to steer toward belonging. They don't confront problems first, they attempt to soften trajectories. This inner masculine This inner masculine is what makes Cancer natural counselors, caretakers, mediators, and emotional anchors. Pause one moment. There is a business, God, what is it called? Integrity, integrity something, counseling or something like that. There are 3 Cancer therapists in one building. That is so crazy to me. That's awesome. It's not actually crazy, like totally. There so many Cancers or ENFJs become psychologists, therapists, something in that field. So they're the natural counselors, caretakers, mediators, and emotional anchors. They carry meaning through continuity rather than ideology. But when this function becomes overloaded, Cancer starts living for other people's futures instead of their own. They begin organizing their entire life around keeping others emotionally stable. That's when self erasure begins. This is the quiet guidance engine. Cancer isn't just feelings. Cancer is a strategist of belonging, and I tracks trajectories, where this relationship is going, what this pattern is going to cost, what this person will become if nothing changes. They already see who isn't stable, and I gives foresight. Jupiter adds moral meaning and future orientation. Cancer wants growth, purpose, and life that holds together long term. Cancer doesn't just want connection, they want connection that lasts, belonging with purpose. They are future oriented emotionally. This is why Cancer often stays too long. They can see potential even when reality isn't cooperating. Cancer's inner masculine is the part that knows. It knows what's coming. It knows what the relationship will look like in a year. It knows who is unsafe, even when Cancer is still being kind to them. This is their internal spine. When healthy, they guide gently, they redirect relational flow, they intervene early. When overwhelmed, they become controlling through care. They try to steer outcomes emotionally, not for power, for protection. All right, so now we're going to get into the inner feminine with extroverted sensing and Saturn. Embodied attachment memory. So I am going to have to do a video because I know eventually I'm going to attract the people that I had studied for many, many, many years. I am going to have to make a video of my evolution of my own work because I can already hear this isn't inner feminine because it's an extroverted cognitive function and it's Saturn, but I'm gonna have to make a whole video on explaining how I break this down versus how others do. So it's a thing. It's gonna come, and I'm totally cool. Like totally cool with it. So I'm adding to this body. I'm adding to the system. I'm not trying to debate anyone is wrong. I am just going I'm adding to. I'll just put it that way for now. All right. So, emotional memory, attachment imprint, nervous system storage, where loyalty becomes embodied. So, embodied attachment memory, the nervous system imprinting. Yeah. Okay. So, I just said that. So, where safety becomes physical and responsibility settles into the body. This is where Cancer stores reality. SE records lived moments. Saturn locks them in. Touch, tone, presence, abandonment, protection, all of it becomes embodied memory. Cancer doesn't remember relationships conceptually, they remember them semantically. Their body remembers who showed up, who disappeared, who made them feel safe, and who broke trust. This is why Cancer loyalty is so deep and why betrayal cuts so hard. Saturn here creates duty in the nervous system. They don't just feel responsible, they become responsible in their muscles, posture, and exhaustion levels. This is where Cancer becomes carrying more than their share. This is where Cancer truly feels. Their body remembers who they nurtured, who depended on them, who abandoned them, and where they overgave. Not intellectually, semantically. This is why Cancer struggles to let go. They don't just remember relationships, they carry them in the body. So, this quadrant creates deep loyalty, emotional endurance, caregiving fatigue, and attachment pain. When unregulated, this becomes overfunctioning, martyrdom, emotional exhaustion, and difficulty releasing people. Cancer doesn't burn like Scorpio, Cancer bleeds slowly. Cancer's inner feminine is where attachment becomes physical. SE child combined with Saturn stores relational experience directly in the body. This is not abstract memory, this is semantic imprint. So safety, loyalty becomes embodied. Safety becomes something they feel in their muscles. Responsibility settles into posture, habits, and daily routines. This is why Cancer often appears grounded, domestic, or oriented toward creating physical safety, homes, meals, routines, and traditions. They build containers for connection. But Saturn here also means emotional responsibility becomes heavy. They feel obligated to show up even when exhausted. They keep caring long after reciprocity disappears. They remain loyal to people who no longer protect them. Their body remembers promises long after minds move on. This is where Cancer's moral burden becomes chronic. They don't leave easily, they hold on, even when it hurts. This is where Cancer differs from SI heavy types like Capricorn, Scorpio, and Virgo. Cancer does not store memory archivally. They store it semantically in the body, in tone, in timing, in environments, in physical cues or totems. Cancer's memory is embodied like SE. What happened in the body, what happened in the environment, what happened through lived experience. Saturn adds imprinting. Consequences settle into the body over time. So, Cancer remembers through sensation, sensory association, tone and timing, physical cues, environment based triggers, the feeling of the room. They don't always recall exact events. It's not, I remember every detail forever like SI. It's my body knows what happened here. This is why Cancer can walk into a room and instantly feel unsafe, even if they can't articulate why yet. The memory is in the nervous system and the environment. This is attachment memory through lived experience. All right, so now we're going to move into outer masculine with introverted thinking, inferior, and Mars. Protective defense mode, reactive logic, protective action, and boundary enforcement under threat. This is Cancer's emergency system. Cancer's outer masculine only activates under threat. TI inferior combined with Mars is not elegant logic. It is reactive protection. When emotional safety is violated, Cancer shifts from nurturing to defending. This is the protective defense mode. They don't lead with logic. When Cancer is safe, they lead with care. When Cancer is threatened, the outer masculine kicks in reactively. TI inferior is where Cancer gets sharp. It's not their default, which is why it can come out sideways, direct and unemotional. It becomes, I am done explaining. Here's the line. Here's what makes sense. Here is what is true. Mars gives urgency and force. TI supplies justification. Together they form Cancer's emergency boundary system. This is Cancer saying enough. But because this function is inferior, it often comes out late, intense, and emotionally charged. Cancer waits too long, then explodes. This is not elegant logic, this is survival logic. Suddenly, you get sharp statements, blunt conclusions, protective aggression, defensive reasoning. This stops now energy. This is Cancer in defense mode, not strategic, not philosophical, protective. This is where Cancer earns the reputation for being moody, reactive, or irrational. In reality, you just activated their attachment alarm. Mars adds force and boundary enforcement. This is the Cancer everyone is shocked by, the one who goes from soft to absolute in one sentence. This is when they stop nurturing and start enforcing. This is the Cancer people don't expect. But it is not random. It's the moment Cancer decides if care isn't protecting connection, then defense will. All right, so let me see how many more pages I've got. All right, so I'm going to get into Cancer containment collapse sequence. All right, so let's map Cancer's collapse sequence. Because Cancer does not explode like Scorpio and they do not collapse like Capricorn, Cancer erodes, and here's the sequence. I need a drink. All right. Stage 1, attunement. Cancer detects the shift early. They feel the temperature change. They notice distance. They notice tone. Their first instinct is gentle repair. More care, more softness, more cohesion. Stage 2, overfunctioning. When the other person doesn't respond, Cancer does more. They try harder. They become the regulator. They start carrying both sides of the bond, the fixer, the stabilizer. This is where Cancer becomes the good partner, the good daughter, the good friend, the good employee, the one who keeps everything emotionally organized. Stage 3, silent resentment. Here's the danger. Cancer can carry for a long time. They have high endurance with Saturn. But while they're carrying, their body is tracking. I'm alone in this. And that becomes resentment. Cancer doesn't resent care itself. Cancer resents unreciprocated responsibility. Stage 4, boundary activation with TI and Mars. When Cancer finally flips, they don't explode like Scorpio. They snap into clarity. Snap, the pinchers, the crab pinchers. They get cold, direct, and boundary oriented in a way people don't expect. TI inferior makes it sharp. They are the crab. I'm sorry, I'm just picturing a crab sidestepping and snapping its claws. They get cold, direct, and boundary oriented. TI inferior makes it sharp. This is not logical. This is not fair. This doesn't make sense. Mars makes it final. People are shocked. Cancer is not. They've been holding this for months. Stage 5, protection through emotional withdrawal. Cancer then protects the wound by pulling back emotionally. Sometimes they disappear. Sometimes they stay physically but shut down relationally. They're still there, but the warmth is gone. Stage 6, care becomes leverage, the shadow. If Cancer stays uncontained, care becomes currency. After everything I've done. Not because Cancer is manipulative, but because when your entire identity becomes the one who cares and people still don't care back, you start demanding proof. Stage 7, the shell hardens. This is the final Cancer collapse. They stop offering warmth freely. They become suspicious of intimacy. They equate closeness with responsibility and responsibility with danger. This is how Cancer turns from soft to guarded. Cancer collapse pattern. When containment fails, Cancer does not scorch the field and they do not seal off emotionally. They overextend, they become emotionally exhausted, resentful but silent, over responsible, anxious about abandonment, unable to receive care. They continue giving while quietly breaking inside. Eventually, they reach a point of emotional depletion that feels like betrayal of self. That's when Cancer either withdraws completely or becomes emotionally reactive and controlling. Not because they want power, but because they are empty. Okay, so what breaks Cancer and what heals Cancer? Cancer breaks when care is taken for granted, emotional labor is expected but not reciprocated, loyalty is demanded but not protected. They're punished for having needs. They're told they're too sensitive when they're actually tracking relational reality. People apologize but don't change. Bonds are treated like optional hobbies instead of sacred responsibilities. Cancer heals when responsibility is shared early. Care is reciprocated without them begging. Conflict has rules and repair is real. Boundaries exist so they don't have to overfunction. Their feelings are treated as data, not weakness, and they are allowed to be nurtured too. Cancers don't relax from reassurance. Cancer relaxes from reliability. Consistency is the love language. Integration path, how Cancer becomes the safest archetype. Integrated Cancer is not codependent. Integrated Cancer is relational leadership. When Cancer integrates, FE becomes emotional intelligence without self erasure. NI becomes guidance without controlling outcomes. SE and Saturn becomes embodied boundaries and grounded loyalty. TI and Mars becomes clean clarity without cruelty. Banana. Integrated Cancer learns the most important containment upgrade of all. Yes, I do know all your secrets, Cancer. No, I'm not going to blow them out on the field right now. Connection is not your job alone. They stop carrying the entire bond. They require co-holding. They stop proving love through overgiving. They stop rescuing people who refuse responsibility. And when Cancer does that, they become one of the most stabilizing energies in existence, not because they're soft, because they are secure. So when Cancer integrates, they allow others to hold emotional weight. They stop equating love with self-sacrifice. They let NI guide boundaries instead of FE over giving. They regulate their body before responding. They allow Mars and TI to act earlier, softer, and clearer. They learn that protecting connection also includes protecting themselves. Then Cancer becomes deeply loyal without martyrdom, nurturing without depletion, emotionally present without absorbing anything, and protective without control. They stop being emotional infrastructure. They become emotional partners. Cancer in the moral load trinity. Capricorn carries structure, Scorpio carries truth, Cancer carries people. Scorpio confronts corruption, Capricorn prevents collapse, Cancer preserves belonging. Scorpio burns, Capricorn braces, and Cancer holds. All three break when containment is missing. All right, so how to love Cancer without becoming the landfill for the cross watchers. This isn't about managing Cancer. It's about not turning them into your emotional infrastructure. Tell the truth early, reciprocate small care consistently. Rule number 1, don't outsource your feelings to them. Cancer can hold space, but they are not your therapist, your mother, your nervous system in one body. Rule number 2, repair in action, not words. Cancer hears your apology. What they need is changed behavior. Rule 3, reciprocate small care early. The little things matter. That's what tells Cancer they're not alone. Rule number 4, don't punish needs. If Cancer shares a need and you mock it, minimize it, or call it too much, you just taught them intimacy is not safe. Rule number 5, make responsibility explicit. Say what you're carrying, say what they're carrying, don't leave it implied. Don't outsource your feelings, repair with action, make responsibility explicit. Don't punish vulnerability. Cancer doesn't relax from reassurance, they relax from reliability. Cancer doesn't need you to worship them. Cancer needs you to participate. So that's Cancer as moral load bearer number 3, the relational burden holder. Cancer is not weak. Cancer is heavy. They are the ones who keep the bond alive when everyone else is too busy or too independent or too logical to show up emotionally. So if you're Cancer or your loved one, I want you to hear me. You are not too sensitive. You are tuned into the part of reality most people neglect until it breaks. And your next upgrade is this: stop carrying love alone. So next we're going to move into Virgo, or the ESFJ, moral load bearer number 4, the integrity accountant. Virgo isn't carrying connection the way Cancer does. Virgo is carrying standards, repair. The body has to fix it energy. Virgo is the archetype that tracks what's wrong and tries to correct it before collapse. All right, so after Virgo, we're going to keep moving down the ranking. But yeah, so anyways, I'm exhausted. Hour and a half, not bad. I absolutely certainly hope that you enjoyed this video. If you know anyone else doing the type of work I am, please, for the love of God, let me know. I'm kind of alone in this field. It's really wonderful. I can tell you that. I am actually proud of myself for once in my life. I've been working hard on this for a long time. So, anyways, yeah, like and subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment box down below. Feel free to check out my ebooks. I have, I don't even know, 30 ebooks or so. Let me see. Where is my... I thought I had that brought up here. Oh, here it is. All right, so ebooks. I have the Masculine Feminine Polarity, Identity Capture, and Why Some People Burn Out. That is the very last book I've written so far on the masculine to the feminine ranking, dealing with containment and moral load. Down low, I actually had someone request down low. That was hilarious. I have a generational series. I have the millennial book up. Baby boomers, deep fake reality, the collapse of truth and the AI crisis no one is prepared for. That is a free book, actually. Scorpio, if you have a question, any question you want to ask me, you can click on that and ask me a question. I have a whole bunch of books on Aquarius. I spent all of last year working on Aquarius. Certainly outdid myself. I don't know if my internet's even going to work. I don't think I can. It's not going to load. Anyways, I'm exhausted. Is it going to pull up? I have no internet. I live in BFE. All right. Oh, there it goes. All right, so Aquarius. I do have the 12 astro-psychological archetypes in a book in a nutshell. If you're interested in that, I break down the archetypes through the elements, the air signs, earth, fire, water. Soul temple philosophers, that's Scorpio, Capricorn, Aries, and Pisces. I have Libra, Gemini, Taurus. These are master ebook, master astro-psychological ego books, Aries and Pisces. So my next book, my next I can't even talk anymore. In-depth astro-psychological ego ebook is going to be Capricorn or the ISTJ, and then most likely Cancer or the ENFJ. So anywho, take care, y'all, and I will see you in the next video.